everybody, my name is Brandon. Welcome back to the channel. I am here today to talk about my May 2020 TBR and TBW. So this is all of the books I plan to read and all of the movies I plan to watch in the month of May. So as you all know, obviously we are still in a quarantine or a stay home, stay safe situation, at least in my state. And I have been told from work to plan to work from home for at least through the month of May. Most likely I'm going to be working at home through most of June, if not all of it. But the reason I bring that up is because unlike maybe the first 3 times I did these TBR videos this year, this one is going to be more akin to my April TBR in that I've only selected one audiobook because I'm doing a lot less driving, and I have stuck to shorter physical books, and I'm trying to not pad it, but just pack it, I guess I should say, with graphic novels as well. So I don't have a whole lot of things to talk about in this video, and that's fine. I don't read a ton every month like some other people do. I usually consume a ton of audiobooks, and so I read in that way. But given the fact that that I am not driving nearly as much, I don't have that as nearly as big of an option or as much of an option as I normally do. So I will mention though, in the last month, in April, I did manage to finish 2 different audiobooks. But for this TBR, I just stuck to one audiobook. It's a relatively shorter one though, so I probably will get to a second one by the time the month's through, but I don't know what that's going to be at this point. So I just stuck to one audiobook, and then I have, I have 2 graphic novels, 1 physical, 1 digital, and then 3 physical novels. 2 of them are middle grade, so stick around for that. And then movies, I have about 3 movies to talk about that I plan to watch in May. So with all of that said, let's dive right in. Starting with the graphic novels I plan to read in May, I'm going to start with my digital one, and this is going to be, and frankly, a lot of these are a continuation from April, so if you've seen my April TBR, or if you watch my April wrap-up, which I will be posting sometime probably next week, then you'll hear me talk about the first volumes or the first book in the series of a lot of these that I'm talking about today. But first up is going to be V-Wars Volume 2. So this is available on Hoopla, and so I'm going to borrow it that way, thanks to my library. I mentioned in my V-Wars Volume 1, which I happen to have right here, I reviewed Volume 1, so definitely check out that review if you're interested. It is a spoiler-free review of the first six issues of V-Wars, and then Volume 2 is going to contain the rest. Actually, this would be the first 5 issues, and then Volume 2 contains issues 6 through 11, which is the entire V-Wars graphic novel series. So I want to finish up the series. I really enjoyed Volume 1, as I mentioned in my review, so I really wanted to follow it up. I planned on purchasing Volume 2, but it's a little bit more expensive than I wanted to pay for it because it's about $14-15 for the graphic novel, and then I have to pay about $5 for shipping. And so I decided, hey, let me check Hoopla. They have a ton of graphic novels on there, and lo and behold, actually both volumes were available on Hoopla. So if you are connected to Hoopla via your library, which is free as long as you have a library card, then you might be able to find both V-Wars Volume 1 and Volume 2 on there. I definitely recommend Volume 1, and I will let you know as May progresses if I recommend Volume 2. But I want to check this out. It is basically a Civil War story or a war story, but with a vampire coating over it, over the whole thing. It's very interesting. It's a lot deeper than I ever expected it to be. There's so many, I don't know, just twists and turns that the graphic novel takes you on. Really well written, not well spoken, but it is well written at least. And so, if that's something that sounds interesting to you, I would definitely recommend checking it out. And like I said, you can probably get Volume 1 free via Hoopla if you're interested in that. So first on my TBR for May is going to be V-Wars Volume 2, and I plan to read that digitally thanks to Hoopla. The next graphic novel I want to read is more of a traditional superhero graphic novel. So if you guys have been following me this year, I think I read Green Lantern and I really disliked it, but I think that was really the only traditional superhero comic or comic book series, graphic novel, whatever you want to call it, that I ended up reading this year. At least that's the only thing that comes to mind immediately. I might be wrong. I'd have to double check my list. But anyway, for this one, I decided I wanted to go back and read one that is pretty infamous, I believe. It's from the early 90s, I think 92, 93, and it is The Death of Superman. So I've owned this graphic novel for quite some time now. It was one of frankly, one of the first graphic novels I ever purchased way back when. I've just never gotten around to it. I don't know anything about the story revolving around this at all. I don't know anything about this other than the fact that clearly Superman dies because it's called The Death of Superman. So that must happen. Otherwise, they'd probably have a better name for it. But this is supposed to be one of the best. It is at least the best-selling graphic novel of all time, according to the cover here. So I've heard a ton of great things about this. Like I said, it's from the early 90s. So the art style is very much not something I would normally tend to read. And frankly, I don't know if there's any early 90s or 90s graphic novels that I've ever read, but I just don't love the art style. It's very faded compared to what we see nowadays and what I generally tend to like. So we'll see if I enjoy the story. It has to be pretty good because it's so well known. So we'll give it a shot and see. And really the reason I wanted to read this is because I just watched Shazam last month, and I don't know. It just gave me Superman vibes for obvious reasons if you've seen it. And I don't have any Shazam comics, so this is going to have to suffice. So The Death of Superman, I'm hoping to read in May. The next book I want to talk about is the audiobook I hope to complete this month, and that is Joyland by Stephen King. So as you can see from the cover, this is going to be a much different story than what I've read previously from King, but I'm really interested in it because it is from the Hard Case Crime series. It's published by Hard Case Crime, which I love from the Quarry books, which I read my second Quarry book last month and absolutely loved it. So I'm really excited to dive further into, one, the Hard Case Crime stories, and two, a Stephen King novel that is not necessarily a horror book and not one of his classics. This is a newer one. This one was released in 2015, I believe it was. No, it was 2013. Close enough. But this one was on sale for $5 in a recent Audible sale. And so I picked it up and I figured, hey, what better time to read it than now? It's only about 7.5 to 8 hours, 7 hours, 43 minutes, I think is what it is, somewhere around there. And so it's going to be a pretty quick one to get through, and one I hopefully I'm going to enjoy. Apparently it has to do, it takes place, you can probably tell by the cover, it takes place at a carnival dealing with carnies, and then there is a murder that is, I assume, trying to be solved. So I don't know a ton about it, but the description I read made it sound interesting. It was down to $5, and it's a Stephen King book I don't own. So I know I wanted to give it a shot. I love King as a writer, so I'm sure I'm probably going to enjoy this. So excited to get to this one. Joyland by Stephen King is one I will try to complete on audiobook in the month of May. The next book is one that is a follow-up from my April reading, and this is the second novelization I want to complete on the channel, Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back. So this one is obviously, episode 5 and takes place after the events of A New Hope. And I am currently reading, I don't have it next to me. I should have A New Hope finished up in the next day or two here. So next up on the list would be Empire Strikes Back. And I'm enjoying what I'm reading for the novelization to A New Hope. So I want to continue on in the series. Hopefully I will enjoy this one enough that in June you will see episode 6 novelization up here. But I guess we'll have to wait and see if I get burned out by him or not. I'm trying to remember who wrote this. Oh, this is written by Donald F. Glut. So not a very well-known author to me. But yeah, I mean, really, what I'm discovering from A New Hope is it's pretty much George Lucas's writing, just, turned into novel form. And that's not to diminish the work that Alan Dean Foster has done in A New Hope at all. There's obviously different things, new things, but the dialogue at least is basically straight from the movie. So I'm guessing that this is probably going to be pretty much the same, but I'm excited to get to it. So I will try to complete Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back in May. The last two books I want to talk about are both middle grade. So the first one is another one that I read book 1 in April, and so I plan to read book 2 in May, and this is from 1996. It is Animorphs Book 2, The Visitor, and this is written by K.A. Applegate. So I have not done my review of Animorphs Book 1 yet, which I believe was like The Invasion, I think is what that one was called, but I really enjoyed it, and I was kind of blown away by some of the depth that it tries to bring. And so I'm really, can you guys see that hologram? It's not, I don't think it's showing up on the camera. Oh, there it is. It's a cat. And then it's a girl. It's a cat and then a girl. Oh, it's horrible. Whatever. Hopefully you get the idea. But the first one, it had this same type of cover, but it didn't have the hologram. And frankly, it's like the ugliest cover ever for the first book, which I have sitting over there. But the second one is very cool because it has a hologram, so that's awesome. But yeah, so this, of course, series is a middle grade science fiction series. Very much so in the vein of Goosebumps, but instead of it being for horror audiences, it's for sci-fi audiences. And frankly, it's a lot deeper than the Goosebumps books were willing to go. So I really enjoyed the first one. I imagine I'm going to like these as I continue through. So we'll check out The Visitor next. So book number 5 that I hope to complete in May is K.A. Applegate's Animorphs number 2, The Visitor. The 6th and final book I hope to complete in the month of May is still what I think is probably the coolest find I've ever had while shopping for secondhand books. And fittingly, it is The Sixth Sense, Secrets from Beyond, Survivor. So this is a middle grade mystery series based on M. Night Shyamalan's The Sixth Sense. Like, why this 3-book series, this is book 1, why this 3-book series even exists is beyond me. But I love that it does. And so I've just been thinking about it lately, and man, I really want to check it out. I have book 1 and book 3. Book 2 was nowhere to be found when I was shopping for these. Or, I take that back. I was not shopping for these at all. I was shopping for the Star Wars junior novelizations, and I stumbled across this and was blown away. So, of course, I had to buy it. But yeah, I am really excited to see what this is. This is just so interesting to me. So these are written by David Benjamin. And like I said, it's a 3-book series. I own book 1 and 3. I have book 2 in my Amazon cart. If I enjoy this, I will be pulling the trigger on that one. And frankly, even if I don't, I probably will pick that one up at some point because this is like the most, I don't know, just out there and unexpected series I've ever found, especially when it comes to middle grade books. So I'm really interested to see what David Benjamin does with M. Night Shyamalan's story as a base. So we'll see what this one is all about. So Sixth Sense, Secrets from Beyond, Survivor is the last book I hope to complete in May. Those were all of the books I want to complete. Now let's move over to the films I hope to watch next month. So first up is a wraparound or a continuation of my April TBW, and that is Suicide Squad on 4K. I didn't get around to this one this month for whatever reason. I did watch Shazam, and I am currently watching the Stand miniseries, which is obscenely long. I have 2 parts left, and I have 2 days in the month left to go. So as I finish this up, that's what I plan to do, is watch the Stand part 3 and then part 4 so I can finish that off. But yeah, this is from 2016. Like I said last month, I enjoyed it in theaters. I want to check it out again just because I've been watching through a lot of the DCEU again. I want to check, or not again, but I've been finishing the DCEU, and for whatever reason, I want to give this one another shot to see if it is worthy of my like of it, or if it is actually worthy of all the hate that it gets. So we'll find out. So Suicide Squad is one that I hope to get to in May because I didn't get to it last month. If you guys have been following the channel this year, you might have seen my Criterion Collection video. And in that video, I mentioned that I wanted to start conquering my Criterion Collection. So this month, I'm going to take a stab at that. And I decided that it would be most fitting to do it with, as I mentioned in that video, the very first Criterion Collection Blu-ray I remember buying that I have not watched yet. And that is The Night of the Hunter. So this is directed by, I think it's Charles Laughton. Yes, Charles Laughton. So this one is a black and white film from 1955. I was actually looking through my collection. I was like, you know what? Let me just start at A, what I haven't seen, and go through them there. I picked up Anatomy of a Murder, and it was like 161 minutes. And so we slid that one right back in and was like, you know what? Forget the alphabet. Let's just pick one I haven't seen yet. And this one immediately sprang to mind because I want to check this out. I always hear this is one of the best films in the Criterion Collection. It's one that you can just watch over and over again, which is the reason I initially bought it, back in 2009, 2010, somewhere in there, and have just not watched it yet. So this is The Night of the Hunter from 1955, and this is the first one, the first movie I hope to conquer in the Criterion Collection in 2020. The last movie I have to talk about is it might be a little controversial, but as you guys know, I have been reading through Star Wars A New Hope, and so, of course, that's a novelization of the film, and now once I finish it, I'm going to want to watch the movie. And so I plan to watch Star Wars A New Hope in the month of May. And I will preface this by saying I do own the original Blu-ray trilogy, the complete saga, so I did legally purchase this, and the only reason I say that is because of what I'm holding in my hand. So this is, and you may or may not have heard of these before, but these are the Star Wars despecialized editions. So these are a fan-made edition of the films. It's actually the original trilogy that takes out all of the additions that that George Lucas added in after the fact. And so these go back as closely as they possibly can to the original theatrical releases. So what this fan did, which I forget his name, I was just looking at it earlier and I totally forget it. It was not his real name, but it was like a nickname. Hermy, I think it was. Maybe Hermy, Hurmy, I think. But anyway, he went in and took the best elements he could find from any scenes that were edited and tried his best to upscale them and then put it all together with footage from this Blu-ray release for elements that were not edited or not, there was no CGI added to it. And then what you have is the despecialized edition. So this is a terrible, you probably can't even see it, but as it says on the back, just sit back and enjoy the ride uninterrupted by unnecessary additions to these classic movies. I want to show you guys the discs just so you can see these are burned copies. This is episode 5 and episode 6 on DVD. And then episode 4 is the only one I have on Blu-ray. So again, not condoning piracy. I do own the original, so I have George Lucas and company, now Disney, have my money for it. These were just fan-made releases that take out all of the special edition additions. Now, that said, I am not someone that thinks that the special editions are terrible by any stretch. The reason I downloaded these initially was because I was interested in seeing what the differences were. Because as someone who honestly watched Star Wars for, honestly, the first time I can remember was with these Blu-rays. Maybe the first one I've seen previously, episode 4, I've seen previously, but honestly, the rest of them, I'm sure the first time I watched them was in this complete saga Blu-ray set. So I had no idea what, all the fuss was about. And watching these originals, yes, you can tell when the footage goes from like Blu-ray and then it moves to upscale DVD or whatever the case may be to get the original footage back in. But it's fascinating because it is, some of the movies are more different than others. Episode 4, I think people kind of put that up as one that the special editions don't really hurt at all. But it is what it is. So the reason I initially downloaded these was because I was curious on what the differences were. And then I've watched these a number of times. I really enjoy them. I've watched these a number of times. I really enjoy them. Really, I don't care. For some reason, I want to go back to the theatrical release because I feel like it'll be more akin to what was written back in the novelization of the film. So that's why I'm going to go with the despecialized edition of this. So if you guys are wanting to know where to find these, honestly, I have no clue. It has been 5 years. No, man, probably 7 years, 8 years since I actually initially heard of these and then downloaded them. So I honestly have no idea where you can find them. Just search Star Wars Despecialized Edition on Google, and I'm sure you'll find something if you're interested. So that's the last movie I hope to watch in May. And I'm going to go with the Despecialized Edition of Star Wars A New Hope. All right, so those are all of the books and movies I hope to read, along with the digital ones I talked about, so Joyland and V-Wars Volume 2. But that's everything I hope to read next month. So let me know down in the comments below, what are you guys planning on watching? What are you planning on reading? What are you planning on listening to? What are you planning on playing? What are you planning on consuming in the month of May? And is the quarantine still happening in your state? And is that affecting you at all? Either negatively or positively when it comes to your media consumption. Let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to have more of a conversation with you guys down there about any of these movies, any of these books, or anything else in general, media related or otherwise. As always, if you guys enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to Cinefessions here on YouTube. And if not, thank you anyway for watching. I really appreciate it. All right, guys, so that's going to do it for today. I want to say thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.